Thanks for staying with us. The University of Johannesburg's Community Engagement Unit is tackling the scourge of gender-based violence head-on. The institution has launched a project aimed at tackling the alarming rise of GBV cases against women, particularly in Johannesburg's nightlife scene. Let's discuss how this will be done. We'll speak to Fiona Mahlori, who's UJ Community Engagement Senior Manager. Fiona, one thinks nightlife and thinks it's wild, uncontrollable at times. So why was it important for this unit to hit at, go to the nightlife in order to be able to engage with some of the youngsters there?
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having me, Bongiwe, and good evening to you and to the viewers. So as the University of Johannesburg Community Engagement Unit, we have launched a project and we are embarking on addressing gender-based violence, specifically within the nightlife settings. So we're looking at your clubs, your bars, all the social settings. We're also looking at services that are offered during the nightlife settings. So the e-hailing services, which is available to people, who engage in nightlife activities where they take transport from one place to the other. So if you check South Africa, we're having quite a lot of interventions on gender-based violence, which is good. However, our rates of GBV are still on the rise. So we have specifically targeted the nightlife setting to say, okay, but what is being done in this sector? What we do know that GBV occurs in those areas, especially if one looks at entertainment venues, where there's also consumption of alcohol and engaging in other behaviors that can be considered as risky. So what is happening on those spaces, that's our first approach, where we will be going to do research to find out what sort of awareness, if any, are those spaces doing on gender-based violence, especially risk factors, Pardon me, Fiona, for coming in there. So is it for research purposes currently, or are you going to be going out, for example, on a Friday night in order to be able to get a sense of how things are unfolding, to get a first-hand account? Thank you for that question. So the project is in phases. The first phase will be to go to those spaces and find out what are the current practices and also what are the challenges that they're experiencing in regards of GBV and what type of GBV, cases occur in those spaces. I mean, currently, especially in South Africa, the information that we have is mostly anecdotal, and it's also people reporting on social media that they have experienced gender-based violence, so there isn't much research on that space. So the research that we will start with will assist us to understand, what is the situation, and we'll use that information to design educational awareness campaigns and also to do training with the people who work in these spaces. So we are targeting people that work in clubs, in the shebens, in these bars, but also people that work in the e-hailing transport sector to say, okay, should you be, in a situation where there is an incident of gender-based violence, how do you respond? How do you assist somebody without, inflicting more harm, without being insensitive, and also without discouraging them from pursuing or seeking help? So that is how we will be implementing. So it's not only the research will inform our intervention, that it responds directly to this, it's a very special area. And I think you mentioned earlier that it is very wild, it is, it's a sector that has not really been touched when we look at gender-based violence awareness and intervention. So that's why this project is going there to say, okay, with this alarming rates of GBV in South Africa, what can we do differently? What more can we do in terms of our interventions to eradicate the scourge?
And it's quite important that you touch on e-hailing services, because we often see on social media in some instances where women will be reporting some of their cases and really hoping for a response, and there's sometimes very little to none. And of course that also speaks to just how responsive some of these stakeholders that you'll be talking to are when it comes to the seriousness of these issues. So what are you hoping, as you go into this discussion? discussion with that particular sector alone in order to be able to also ensure the safety of women and the fact that they can report their matters even to the e-hailing services companies and get the required results?
Thank you. With the e-hailing sector, we have received quite a great, response and a great appetite for this kind of intervention. So when we reached out, they showed interest to say, yes, we really need this. I think it also shows that they are not ignorant of the fact that there are quite a lot of GBV cases that happen within that sector, and they say, yes, we want to partner. We also want to join in this fight against gender-based violence. So they will be forming part of a forum. So we've formed a forum where all the stakeholders and everyone that's involved in the nightlife economy will meet to discuss the issues that are being faced in that sector, but also be trained to be sensitive on GBV matters, because I think in as much as we want to prevent gender-based violence, it is still occurring. And when it occurs, what can we do to reduce harm to the survivors, to the victims, to ensure that they are being assisted?
Yeah, and to also increase vigilance as well. So thank you so much. Do appreciate your time. And I look forward to this research and see then what are some of, the measures you're proposing as you're putting them in place. So we'll continue, of course, to monitor this particular story. Thank you so much, Fiona, for talking to us. That was Fiona Mahlori, the UJ Community Engagement Senior Manager.